Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're a lab rat, but not in a cage on a hospital bed. Scientists walk up to you and say, "Don't worry, it's just an experiment. We're just going to see how long you can survive without sleep, or how much electricity your heart can take, or we'll freeze you to death temperature and then thaw you back to life." Sounds like a horror movie script. Well, it's not. These are real experiments that scientists performed on themselves and others. For science. For answers. Sometimes just because they were curious. Today, we're counting down 10 of the craziest, scariest, most unbelievable experiments ever done on the human body. You'll learn what it feels like to starve for over a year, what happens to your brain when you're zapped with electricity, and whether you can survive drinking a glass of acid. Spoiler, not everyone survived, but all of them changed science forever. Let's go. Experiment 1. The guy who stayed awake for 11 days. We all know the feeling of not getting enough sleep. Headache, droopy eyes, you're grumpy as heck. But what happens if you don't sleep at all? Not 1 day, not 2, but 11 days straight. Back in 1964, a 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner decided to do an experiment for his school science fair. He wanted to know how long a person could stay awake without any stimulants, no caffeine, no drugs. The first 2 days were fine. Day 3, Randy started getting annoyed by everything. Day 4, he started hallucinating. He thought he was a famous football player. He saw people wearing clothes that weren't there. By day 5, the doctors watching over him started to panic. But Randy kept going. Day 7, he stopped recognizing his friends' faces. He was shaking. His speech was slurred, but he was still awake. Day 9, Randy lost the ability to do simple math. He'd forget what he just said a second ago. His brain was dying in real time. Day 11, Randy set the record to 160 for hours without sleep. That's 11 days. After that, they finally let him sleep. He crashed for 14 hours straight and woke up almost normal. What we learned: without sleep, your brain starts to destroy itself. Hallucinations, paranoia, memory loss. But amazingly, after a long sleep, the body recovers mostly. Experiment 2. The man who drank acid. Imagine picking up a glass, filling it with hydrochloric acid, the stuff that dissolves metal, and chugging it down. Sounds insane, right? Well, a scientist named William Beaumont in the 1800s did something pretty close, except his patient did the drinking. Beaumont had a patient with a gunshot wound in his stomach. The wound never fully healed, leaving a permanent hole straight into the guy's stomach. Beaumont realized, this is a golden opportunity to peek inside a living human. He lowered pieces of food on a string into the hole and watched the stomach digest them. He dropped in thermometers to measure the temperature inside. He even dripped acid directly onto the stomach lining to see how it reacted. The patient survived. Beaumont became the father of modern gastroenterology. What we learned: the stomach digests food not just by mashing it, but with acid and enzymes. And yes, the stomach lining is protected by mucus, otherwise we digest ourselves. Experiment 3. The human battery electricity experiments. In the 18th century, scientists were just beginning to understand electricity. One of them, Giovanni Aldini, decided to test what electricity does to dead bodies. He took corpses of recently executed criminals and hooked them up to wires. When he passed current through them, the bodies twitched, eyes opened, jaws moved. One corpse even seemed to walk across the table as muscles contracted. Audience members screamed and fainted. Aldini thought he was close to raising the dead. What we learned: electricity makes muscles contract even after death. This discovery led to defibrillators, which save lives today. It also inspired the myth of Frankenstein. Experiment 4. The man who ate only meat for 5 years. Keto diets are all the rage now. But back in the 1800s, an Arctic explorer named Vilhjalmur Stefansson wanted to test whether a person could survive on just meat and fish. No veggies, no bread, only animal protein and fat. He lived like that for 5 years. Doctors were shocked. They thought without carbs, he'd die of scurvy. But Stefansson felt great. What we learned: humans can survive without carbs if they get enough fat. But you have to eat raw meat and organs. They contain vitamins. If he'd eaten only cooked chicken breast, he'd have died. Experiment 5. The doctor who dissected living people. This is the darkest entry on our list. In ancient times, especially in Alexandria, there were scientists who performed vivisection, dissecting living people. Usually these were criminals handed over to science. Herophilus, a Greek physician, studied how the heart beats while it was still beating, how blood moves through veins, how intestines contract. He took notes while the patient screamed. Thanks to these horrific experiments, we learned that the brain is the center of consciousness. Before that, people thought it was the heart. The price of that knowledge: thousands of lives. What we learned: human anatomy would be unknown without dissections. Today we use volunteers and cadavers. But science has a bloody history. Experiment 6. The man who froze himself in the 1960s. Physicist James Bedford decided he wanted to live forever. He paid to have his body frozen immediately after death. They cooled him to liquid nitrogen temperature 196 C and placed him in a capsule. He became the first person ever to be cryonically preserved. His body is still stored today. Scientists hope that one day, future technology will revive him. So far, no frozen human has been successfully revived. But animal experiments show cells can be preserved. What we learned: freezing stops biological time for cells, but thawing currently kills them because of ice crystals. We're waiting for technology to catch up. Experiment 7. The doctor who implanted electrodes in his own brain in the 1950s. Scientist Robert Heath implanted electrodes into patients' brains to treat depression. Then, to prove it was safe, he implanted electrodes into his own brain. He walked around with wires in his head for weeks. He'd turn on the current and observe his emotions. Stimulating one area made him sad. Another area made him feel euphoric. What we learned: the brain can be stimulated electrically. Today this is used to treat Parkinson's disease and depression. It also paved the way for brain-computer interfaces. Experiment 8. The hungriest man in history in 1965. Angus Barbieri decided to lose weight. He weighed 456 pounds to 107 kilograms and wanted to prove that a person can live off their own body fat. So he started a complete fast. Only water, tea, vitamins, and yeast to prevent protein loss. He fasted for 382 days. Over a year. No solid food. He dropped to 180 pounds, 82 kilograms. Doctors monitored him the whole time. No heart, liver, or kidney problems. He felt fine. What we learned: the body can fuel itself. Fat is fuel. But don't try this without medical supervision. You can die from electrolyte imbalance. Experiment 9. The man who drank bacteria to prove a point. Australian scientist Barry Marshall believed that stomach ulcers were caused by bacteria H. pylori, not stress or spicy food. Everyone laughed at him. So he went to the lab, grew a culture of the bacteria, and drank it. Within days, he developed severe vomiting, stomach pain, and bad breath. Doctors did a biopsy. He had an ulcer. He then cured himself with antibiotics and won a Nobel Prize. What we learned: ulcers are treated with antibiotics, not diet. And sometimes, you have to sacrifice your own stomach for science. Experiment 10. The man who lived in a cave for 6 months without time in 1972. French cave explorer Michel Sifry wanted to study how humans perceive time without clocks or sunlight. He descended into a glacier in Texas and lived there for 6 months in total isolation. No watches, no radio, no contact with the surface. He slept when he wanted, ate when he wanted. On the surface, scientists waited for his signals. When Michel emerged, he thought only 2 months had passed. His internal clock had slowed way down. What we learned: without external cues, our bodies switch to a 48-hour cycle. We sleep longer, stay awake longer, and we have no idea what day it is. What did we learn? We've just traveled through 10 of the most unbelievable experiments ever done on the human body. What do they all have in common? 1. Humans can endure incredible things: starvation, cold, electricity, bacteria. 2. Science demands sacrifice, sometimes voluntary, sometimes not. 3. Our bodies are still a mystery. We don't know all their secrets. Now a question for you. Which experiment blew your mind the most? Drop the number in the comments. I'm genuinely curious what shocked you. And if you want a part 2 with even crazier experiments on the brain, the heart, genetics, smash that like button. At 1,000 likes, I'll make 20 even more horrifying experiments. Subscribe so you don't miss the next trip into the wild world of science. And remember, never try this at home. Those scientists knew what they were doing. You're not a scientist.